This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week we introduce you to new women's and men's squash head coach Rei Hergeth. Plus, the basketball teams were a combined 4-1 over the last 7 days, including wins over rivals Colby and Bowdoin. All that and more coming up on the Bates Bobcast. The Bates women's basketball team played its most thrilling game of the season on Wednesday. Bates trailed rival Colby by 4 with 9 seconds remaining. Sophomore Meghan Graff made a layup, cutting the deficit to 2. Colby called timeout to advance the ball with 4.9 seconds left. Then this happened. Burns, who hit that huge shot a moment ago, inbounds here for Colby with 4.9 seconds left. Burns having some trouble. It's a 5-second call. And the ball is going back to Bates. 4.9 seconds left to Graff. Not much time here across the timeline with 2. Graff with 1. Graff at the buzzer. Got it. And we're going to overtime. Graff came up big again in overtime, knocking down a huge 3 to tie the game with 31 seconds to go, and then sinking the game-winning free throw with 0.7 seconds left, as Bates secured a 74-73 win. Graff scored 24 points against the Mules and followed that performance up with 19 points on Thursday against number 4 nationally ranked Bowdoin. Bates lost that game but bounced back on Saturday with a 67-52 win over St. Joseph's College of Maine, improving the Bobcats' record to 4-4 on this season. And Graff scored a career-high 26 points in that victory. Graff leads the NESCAC in scoring. She was named the Maine Women's Basketball Co-Player of the Week, and she is our female Bobcat of the Week. Meghan, let's go over that Colby game again, because wow, what a finish to that game. Have you had any game in your memory, like in high school or maybe last year, I don't know, those matches that even comes close to it?
Yeah, it was funny. I was actually thinking about that, if I ever had any, have done, something like that, ever had a buzzer beater or anything, but no, I haven't, so it was really exciting. It was a good feeling. What
was it like when your teammates sort of swarmed you on the court after you tied it?
I feel like I was just almost in shock. I was like, wow, that really just went in. But it was just such a cool feeling, and knowing that we didn't lose the game and that we had an opportunity in overtime. It was just really, really awesome.
What did Coach say to you? Because obviously you have to refocus at that point.
She basically said, how are you not going to win a game after that just happened? And I think our adrenaline was just going crazy. We were just at that point, we were all right, it's time. We got to win the game. We just came back from down 4 in 45 seconds, or down 6, actually. I think it was down 6. So it just it kind of just put us in the zone for overtime.
Always a tough game the very next day, right? You have to deal with Bowdoin coming in. Your former teammate in high school, right? Maddie Hassan. What's that always like for you?
I think, just going into a game like that after coming off such a high, it's I feel like it can either go two different ways. It can go really well, but it also we could have been completely unfocused and still cut up in the night before. But I really think we just transitioned into that Bowdoin game with the same energy that we finished the Colby game with, and just the talent that Bowdoin has on that team, it kind of gave us more of an incentive to be all right, on to the next game. And yeah, playing against a former teammate of mine, it's always different, just because when you grow up knowing them and also just being on the same team with them and being friends with them. So it's always different, but I think it's really cool to see two Maine players playing in schools in Maine and getting the opportunity to play against each other. So
Saturday, St. Joseph's team that's been a tough matchup for the Bobcats in recent years, but this time you kind of turned the tables on them. What was so key to that victory?
We had a long week, and we really wanted to end it on a good note. I think this kind of caps off another chapter throughout the season. We knew we were going to get a week off. We really wanted to end it on a positive note. And also, even though the Bowdoin game didn't go our way, we kind of just, we were really happy with the way we were playing last week, and we kind of just, told ourselves, this is a, really good opportunity to end on a good note, push through this last game through the fatigue and like through the stress of finals. So yeah.
Yeah, because career high 26 for you in that one. As a sophomore, what adjustments have you made based off your experience last year and your rookie year per se, right?
I think obviously you're a freshman when you go into your first year. You no one really knows you. No one really knows your tendencies. And so this sophomore year, I kind of think I just had to work a little harder. Scoring points is obviously more difficult when everyone knows what your preferences and tendencies are. But I think just kind of transitioning into being a leader on the floor this sophomore year has just really allowed me to grow as a basketball player and as a teammate.
So it looks like you're a righty shooter.
Yeah.
But you dribble lefty a lot.
Yeah.
How does that work? A little ambidextrous.
Yeah, I know. I've noticed that. Because actually, my trainers this summer would always be like, oh, you prefer to drive left. I'm not really sure why. I think it's just because I feel comfortable with the ball either in my right hand or left hand. And yeah, I prefer to drive left. I prefer to if I'm going in for a jump shot, I prefer to dribble with my left hand instead of my right hand. Maybe it's the footwork. I'm not really sure, but I think it's really beneficial since I'm right-handed, but also I'm comfortable with my left hand because it's common to see someone obviously having a more dominant hand or so.
And you got that behind the back move. When do you develop that?
The behind the back, oh gosh, that's always been something I use a lot. It's funny because some people are I hate when you do behind the back. So I think honestly I might prefer using it because when I dribble I'm pretty upright in comparison to some people who are relatively low, who get really low to the ground. And I think I do behind the back instead of crossing over, so I don't expose the ball that much to players. But yeah, I do like that behind the back, especially when I'm dribbling with my right hand. So
you've been doing that for a long time. It's not something you had to really focus on. It kind of came naturally to you.
Yeah, honestly, it has. I think it's just something a move that I found was super productive for me to use while playing in games and in practices too. But I would say I feel pretty comfortable dribbling just with my ball handling in general. So I've definitely worked on after last year and going into the season just getting a little lower while playing and driving to the hoop.
Finals week, we appreciate you making the time here. It sounds like you had some challenging classes this semester basically, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm taking a few tough classes, but I think it's nice being in season to give you some structure, to be able to give you an incentive to have to get the work done because time is so there's not a lot of free time when you're in season. So
certainly, and this is then after that you do have a game next week on the 17th against WPI. And so how do you approach kind of the break, if you will? Because, being from South Portland, you probably stick around in the area.
So we don't get all of winter break. But, so we have our game against the WPI here, and then we're going to, get about a week off. So it's interesting this year because I just think how, Thanksgiving break lined up with winter break, it kind of just seems okay, we just went home for Thanksgiving, then we get a whole week off for finals, and then because we're not practicing right now, having formal practices, but and then we have one game, so we get a few days of practices, one game, and then we'll get a day off. I mean a week, 6 days off, I think, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna prepare to go to Atlanta, which is really exciting. So
yeah, the men's basketball team's going to Miami. The women's team going to Atlanta, going down to a little bit warmer weather, perhaps. Right? Have you been to Atlanta before?
Yeah, I've actually had some basketball tournaments in Atlanta, so it should be good. I think we have 2 games, and then we're also gonna do. We have some other things planned as a team, so it's exciting.
Nice, some good team bonding.
Oh yeah, definitely. We got to do some fun stuff while we're down in. What they say, Hotlanta. Who knows what it'll be like this time of the year, though.
What is the team dynamic like? Because, it seems like there's a really good chemistry. I see, the posts on Instagram, the Teammate Tuesday stuff, all that, right?
Yeah. I think we just, put such a big emphasis on the importance of having, a good team dynamic and good team chemistry. And so that's always just something like we're looking to do, just have like this, just like all inclusiveness as a team. And I think it really benefits just like everyone's experience being on a team and just making basketball a lot more fun. And also, like, you're spending, like, basketball season, it's a long season, and you're spending a lot of time with these girls. And so, like, it's so, like, it's nice to have, like, 12 best friends on the team, so.
Excellent. Meghan Graff, female Bobcat of the week and Maine co-player of the week. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
The men's basketball team is off to a 5-1 start, the program's best since the 2014-15 NCAA tournament season. Bates hit the road Thursday and defeated Bowdoin 72-58 behind the fourth career double-double for senior Jeff Spellman. Spellman poured in 21 points and grabbed a game-high 11 rebounds in the win. Then on Saturday, 6 different Bobcats finished in double figures in an 84-69 win over St. Joseph's College of Maine. First-year Stephon Baxter led the way with 15 points, a game-high 6 assists, and a game-high 4 steals. Casal for 3, off the back iron. Offensive rebound, though, to the Monks, and then Baxter, another steal for Stephon Baxter, the reigning Maine Rookie of the Week. Gets it in the corner for 3. Ring it up! Baxter has 5, and the Bobcats lead by 13. Timeout Monks with 4:06 to go in the first half.
I'm learning a lot, like communication, a lot of communication, and even like defensive skills from like Gilpin. And just finding like Jeff and where he likes to be, and even all the other seniors like Tom Cohen, great shooter. You know, I'm always looking for him when I play with him.
Certainly.
So.
Well, now a trip to Florida coming up. You looking forward to this?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've never been to Miami yet. I'm really excited.
Excellent.
Really
excellent.
excited. It would be even better when we're winning.
Sounds good.
So.
Stephon Baxter, big game, 15 points off the bench, 6 assists, and, oh, by the way, 4 steals. Congrats on a nice victory here today.
Thank you.
Spellman added 14 points and 5 assists in the victory over the Monks. And on Monday, he was named the NESCAC Men's Basketball Player of the Week. And Jeff Spellman is also our male Bobcat of the Week.
First of all, last week as a whole, I'm just so proud of like what we were able to accomplish going 3-0. I know starting with Johnson and Wills, that was an extremely tough game, especially on the road. And then going into Bowdoin, we just wanted to keep the momentum rolling. You know, it's less about going 3-0 in the week and more about just going 1-0 every time we get out there. But we knew they were big. They kind of want to slow the pace down, kind of opposite of what we want to do. They don't have a ton of ball handlers, so we wanted to get up in their point guard and kind of wear his legs down, and we were able to do that pretty well. So that's how we pulled that one off.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are causing a lot of turnovers this year, a lot of steals, and part of that has to do with the first year Baxter stepping in there at guard as well. What's it like having a guy to kind of mentor?
Yeah, no, I was just going to speak about that in terms of our Bowdoin win, but you know, Steph's great for us. He gets up in the ball. I mean, I saw that like the first day he stepped into this gym. Like, he's one of the best on-ball defenders I've ever played against. You know, I feel like fortunate enough, like, for 2 reasons. One, to have him on our team to help us win, and the other is, like, to get up in me. It really makes my game better, you know, when I have to go against that in practice every day. And then stepping onto the game, it feels almost like a little bit of a relief to have to go against someone else. But, yeah, he's been huge for us, not just offensively. He brings great pace and spacing offensively, and he really knows how to play the game. So he's been huge for us, and he's going to be continuing moving forward.
And I touched on the double-double there, but, I mean, you're a guard and you're pulling down those rebounds, your 4th double-double. What was opening up to get those boards for you?
I think it's all credit to Omar Sarr. Just kind of
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think a lot of those are coming off his hands, and I'm just kind of there to grab them. But I know he's such a big athletic guy that I can he kind of like creates a lot of space in the paint, so I can kind of easily just come down and get the board.
He's everywhere. I mean, you know, when you drive to the hoop, you know, if the layup doesn't fall, he's there to clean it up too, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's also been huge for us. I wasn't sure how he was going to do coming into the year, but he's, you know, exceeded my expectations thus far, and I'm so happy for him. He's such a great kid, and he's really helping us out. I mean, you can see teams are now, you know, thinking about coming into the paint and trying to throw up something over him because he's just clearing everything out of there.
We know Cody and Tom are not afraid to shoot the ball. Nick's been shooting the ball a lot more this year. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously need him to be aggressive for us to be successful. He's a great player, and I felt he's been a little hesitant in years past to kind of shoot the ball because he is so unselfish. But yeah, he's been killing it for us this year, and like a lot of our success is based around what he does and how aggressively he plays offensively. So it's been great.
Trip to Miami coming up this winter here. You got the finals this week, and then Miami coming up after that. Stephon's mentioned he'd never been to Miami. Have you ever been to South Florida?
I've been to Miami a few times. Yeah, I love Miami.
Business trip, right?
Yeah.
But it should be pretty fun. What are your thoughts on the 2 games you have scheduled there, including one against, I believe, St. Joseph of Connecticut, coached by Jim Calhoun?
Yeah, that should be fun. I'm not. I mean, the trip is obviously going to be a blast. Every time we go on some of these trips, this will be my 4th one. We always try to have a trip during the winter break, but Miami's going to probably exceed our expectations. It's a little different than Daytona and Long Island, but the teams I don't really know too much. I know that they're 2 traditionally good programs, and then playing against Jim Calhoun, it's going to be really fun. But yeah, we just got to make sure we stay locked in and win both those games.
If I recall, I think Cody or you mentioned this, you both are involved with making films here. Is that still going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's slowed down a little bit with the thesis. I'm a studio art major with a focus in film and media studies. So it's kind of a solo pursuit now by myself, but yeah, he's been a little busy with his rhetoric thesis.
Gotcha. So slightly different concentration.
Yeah, a little bit different. We've done some stuff in the past. Hopefully we can still have a few more projects by the time school's up.
So do you have a thesis then? Are you working on that? Or?
Yeah, it's a full-year thesis, so I'm not entirely sure what my final project will end up being, but I'm looking forward to maybe some photography. I'm doing some sort of photography project right now on my neighborhood in Boston, West Roxbury, but yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Nice. What's that kind of like there?
I just kind of want to explore my hometown, really, and just maybe something like portraiture of the people and the residents living within the area, and that's probably where that's going to go.
Great. So what have the classes been like at Bates throughout your time here, studio art and others as well?
Well, it took me a while to kind of figure out that I was a studio art major. I got on board with that kind of late, but I kind of did the traditional liberal arts route. I've taken such a wide variety of courses. At times it can be a little frustrating because I feel so all over the place, but now being a senior looking back, I've realized that it's been such a huge help.
Excellent. So what are your thoughts on the season so far and what you're most looking forward to, not only the 2 games you have left during 2019, but also on the other side of the new year?
Yeah, like I said earlier, we got to go 1-0 every game. And I think we've done a great job of just being solely focused on each opponent as we get there, and we got to continue to do that if we want to have long-term success. But, in terms of my 4 years here, this has been the most excited, really, I've felt about our potential moving forward. We have such a talented group of guys. We have to make sure that we just continue to push ourselves every day in practice because we can't get complacent with this 5-1 start or whatever we are. We kind of have to continue to look forward. Obviously, once NESCAC starts, it's a totally different ball game. But I've been looking around, checking scores, watching NESCAC teams, and I think we can have a lot of success.
Sounds good. Jeff Spellman, Male Bobcat of the Week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The swimming and diving teams competed at the Maine State meet on Friday and Saturday. The men took second place out of 6 schools, and the women won the meet for the 5th straight season. There were many standout performances, but head coach Peter Casares singled out junior Catherine Peterson for her personal records in 3 events. She finished 5th in the 50-yard breaststroke, 7th in the 100 breast, and 8th in the 200 breast. Catherine, the breaststroke, that's been the stroke you've been working on throughout your career here at Bates. Peter said this was 3 years in the making, kind of.
Yes, it has been.
Yeah. What was the meet like for you? What was really working in the pool, you felt?
Well, I've been training off of NESCACs from last year, so some over the summer. We have had a new lift program for the summer going into this new school year. So I think that has been a big contributor to the time drops that I had, and for everyone else who also swam really well, I think just a little bit of a change has really made a huge impact for us.
Which was the first event you swam, and when did you realize, I'm going to be setting some personal best today?
The first event was the 50 breaststroke individually, and I won a personal best, and that was just so crazy. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to sort of go similar to last year's, but that sort of set the tone for the rest of the meet, and that was super exciting.
Yeah, so this early in the season, it's kind of rare to have personal bests, right?
For events that we swim at NESCACs, it's definitely not something that you would expect to happen because swimming is more of a taper. So we go through a taper regimen going up to NESCACs, which is in February. So going personal best, we had a really tough training week leading up to this meet. And so everyone, I think, had some really nice surprises at this meet, which was really great.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's tons of events. You mentioned on the way over here, you talked about the relays being your favorite. Why are the relays your favorites, in your opinion?
The relays are swam for the other people on your team, and so I think that is a big part in why I like them, because you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for everybody else, and that makes it way more fun. Everyone's cheering for you, everyone's behind the blocks, they're right there with you. And so swimming individual events, while it's fun to go personal best for yourself, it's more exciting to do it with a whole bunch of other kids on your team, yeah.
Excellent. And then capturing the Maine state title yet again for the women, what does that mean to you?
It's exciting. We won it for the past 4 years, and so we sort of went in hoping to get it again, and we set the tone Friday night with, I think, a 90-point lead, and so we sort of build off of each other's energies.
Yeah, well, a 2-day meet like this, you Friday night and then the next day, Saturday, I think there's morning and evening sessions,
Yes.
right? So there's a lot going on. I mean,
Yes.
This is nothing new for you, but what's your regimen kind of between the days, if you will, of the meet?
Getting a lot of sleep definitely is important. Eating enough food throughout the meet and after each session is really important, and especially on the Saturday where we have a morning session and a night session and don't have a hotel to go back to, like taking time to yourself just to decompress. We do some restorative yoga, which is always good, just to get our bodies loose and relaxed from the first session of swimming. So we take a lot of time to recover after each swim, which helps us into the next one.
Yeah, I asked Coach Casares about, who were some of the standouts. He mentioned you as being someone as touched on earlier, kind of 3 years in the making. He seems very proud of you. What did he say to you after all of this?
He just gave me a big hug. He has had some expectations going into the season for me, and at the Wesleyan Trinity meet, I went some best in-season times, so that was fine. But this setting personal bests ever at a meet that we haven't tapered for was pretty cool.
For those who don't know, what does taper mean? Just so people are clear about that.
Taper is when we cut down on the yardage, we have more easy swimming, and it prepares us to race. And so tapering also includes shaving, and so it just makes us feel as fast as we can be.
And so when you're not tapering, that means you're going really hard in practice?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the training process like? What's the typical practice at this time of year like? Some early morning swims, I imagine?
Yeah, so we have 3 morning swims every week. They start at 6 in the morning, and that's normally a lift and a swim, and so that's all powerful stuff. And then in the afternoons, we have 5 afternoons and a Saturday practice. And the afternoons and Saturdays are always really tough. So you have to sort of mentally prepare yourself for every day to have a hard morning and a hard afternoon.
Excellent. And then when you were looking at colleges, you're a junior now, but take us back. What made Bates the place for you, in your opinion?
Well, I wasn't sure if I wanted to swim. I wasn't a top recruit. This was going to be something I did for fun. So I was looking at a lot of big schools and also some small schools that I could swim at, and Bates really stood out to me because of the team atmosphere when I went on a recruiting trip. And they looked like they just had so much fun and all liked each other, and that was sort of different from other places that I went to, and I thought that was a very unique aspect of it, and that really drew me towards Bates.
Were there any big adjustments you had to make initially, coming in here to college, whether it be in the pool or in the classroom maybe?
Yeah, it was definitely way more academically rigorous than high school, and learning how to manage my time with academics as well as having 9 practices a week, where in high school I would choose to go to maybe 4 a week. So that was definitely a big adjustment.
So now looking forward to the train trip in Florida coming up,
Yes.
right? And everyone always says that's their favorite time.
Best part of that. That's the best part of Bates Swim and Dive.
And why is that for you personally?
It's a time where we're not worried about any academics. We can just be with the team in the sun, which we don't get a lot of. And while it's really tough and the practices are very draining, it's a time where you can really learn about yourself and learn about your peers on the team and even if you're not doing so hot that day, someone else might be, and that'll just make you try harder. And so that's really what Training Trip is about.
You mentioned cheering on your teammates is a great part of the relays. Were there any of your teammates who in particular like, wow, that was big from them too?
Yeah, two of our freshmen actually, Gabby Smart and Abigail Gibbons, also had a stellar meet. They've been practicing really hard and training really hard, so those were some standout performances that were very notable. And everyone did really well. Yeah. The women did super, and so we're super excited to set that tone going into the second half of the semester.
Excellent. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
The women's and men's squash teams split a pair of matches Saturday in Connecticut. Both teams defeated Wesleyan in the morning before falling to national powerhouse Trinity in the afternoon. The Bobcats have a new head coach this year. Rei Hergeth competed in college at Trinity, helping the Bantams win 3 national championships. He was most recently the head squash professional at Chelsea Piers of Connecticut, and now he joins the Bobcast. Well, Rei, first of all, welcome to Bates.
Thank you very much.
And looking forward to having you lead the Bates squash programs. You just had really your first full weekend with the team there down in Connecticut. Tell us how it went, because I know for you, a Trinity alum, it must have been kind of weird going back to your old stomping grounds with an opponent's logo, right?
Yeah, I mean that was very weird. I think going into the courts again with another team's logo on my shirt was very strange. I've been following the Trinity program since I was about 11 years old. One of my first coaches actually went there when I think I was about 11 years old. So I've known about the program, the entire winning streak since I was 11 years old. So, I'm 30 years old now, so that's 19 years of following the program and the success of the team. So, yeah, it was very odd walking in there, not actually supporting, the actual team that I played for and followed for such a long time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was almost a very proud moment as well, to actually have gone through that program and to, be coaching a very established and successful team like Bates. I think Bates Squash has built up a great reputation over the last, 9, 10, 15 years. So it's not like, I was representing a college team that hasn't done anything. It was a college team that, has a fantastic reputation. So I was really proud of actually, standing on court and being, Bates College head coach.
Excellent. Well, let's go back when you were growing up in South Africa, right? What was that experience like, and what made you want to come to America to play squash in college?
I just started playing squash when I was about 5 years old. I'm not really sure exactly. I've played my first competitive junior event when I was about 8 years old. But my parents actually had their first official, date playing squash.
Okay.
So squash runs in the family.
Nice.
My grandfather, he played squash. So yeah, my dad still plays squash. My brother is a head pro at the Multnomah Club in Portland, Oregon. And yeah, my mom stopped playing squash about 5-6 years ago. So it's been in the family for a very long time. And like I said, my former coach, one of my first coaches ever, he went to Trinity, and some of my brothers, best friends and people that I looked up to, since I was a very young kid, they also went to Trinity. So it's a long history within my city and in my, family almost, because they did become like brothers in the family. They all went to that school. So,
yeah.
It's something that I had on my mind since I was a very young kid.
Well, I'm curious, when Ahmed Abdelkhalik was on the team here at Bates and Ahmed Hatato, we often talked about how big squash was in Egypt and how good, Egyptian people are at squash in general. How big is it in South Africa? Is it one of the most popular sports in the country, or where does it rank, maybe?
I wouldn't say it's one of the most popular ones. No, it's definitely more well-known than in the U.S.
Okay.
I think it's a more social sport. So again, I grew up kind of, my parents would go and play on a Saturday morning, for like 3-4 hours, and, afterwards go to the bar, have a couple of beers, have lunch.
Yeah.
So it's always just more of a social thing. I think South Africans in general are a lot more active. So
Than Americans?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, just in general.
Right.
So I think, you know, you get a lot of people who found squash and they loved it because it was, I mean, the sport itself is very active. Like you get, I don't think people give squash enough credit for the amount of physicality that you actually go through. I would love to get, you know, some of the best football players in the world out on a squash court and see if they can last for more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it's a brutal sport. So I think a lot of South Africans love that part of it. So again, it just became like a social sport. In terms of competitive junior squash and senior squash, yes and no. I think people would love it for it to be more successful and more competitive. But the fact that the country itself is so isolated from Europe, Asia, and the US makes it kind of difficult for juniors and seniors to actually compete on a international level.
Right, that makes sense. And then, so after you graduated from Trinity, you went and worked at Chelsea Piers, Connecticut right away, basically, right?
Correct, yes.
What was that experience like teaching the sport there, getting kind of your first experience, I guess, coaching, sort of?
Yeah, that was my very first experience coaching. Well, I did a little bit of, you know, coaching before I went to Trinity, actually. I coached at high school back in South Africa for a couple of months, and I coached at high school in Philadelphia before I went to college as a freshman. But Chelsea really was my first experience, actually, you know, being almost, well, forced to learn the game. If you want to teach the game, if you want to be a coach, you have to understand what you're teaching.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I always thought about when I was on court playing. You know, you kind of squash it's such a fast-paced game where, you know, you sometimes get caught up just focusing on yourself and doing the best thing that's right in front of you, rather than thinking, you know, holistically and thinking, why am I doing this? Why did I just play that shot? And when I started coaching, it really just opened my mind up to you know, all the different aspects of the game from a player's view and from a coach's view. What
attracted you to the Bates position? I mean, Pat Kosker was here for quite some time, and when it opened up, what made you think, oh, that could be a good fit for me?
I've had college squash on my mind for a couple of years now. I mean, in terms of a coaching job, it's very different from coaching, you know, privately, especially in the Fairfield County.
Yeah.
It has a lot of challenges. It's a very competitive area. So as soon as, you know, this opportunity came about, I jumped on it right away. I think I probably gave myself another 4 or 5 years before I really saw myself in a college role. And there's a bunch of different reasons behind that. I think probably the biggest one was having to, you know, have younger players, or not, I can't say younger, but to have players that are closer to my age actually buy into my views and my coaching styles. You know, that level of respect as a coach is very important for the players to actually, okay, we trust him, we respect him, and we're going to learn from him. We're going to buy into what this new coach is actually, you know, trying to teach us. And I think as a young coach, you know, that level of respect just naturally does, you know, take a long time, or, you know, it's obviously not as high as if I was a 45-year-old coach with a lot of experience and, you know, college students being closer to my age. Yeah, there's definitely like a long way to go in terms of building up that level of respect.
You've obviously had conversations with our captains, Lutza Polgar and Graham Bunnell. What were those conversations like initially to kind of, you know, initiate, you know, get you familiar with the teams and through them, because they've been around for, you know, they're both seniors?
Yeah, I mean, both Lutza and Graham have been fantastic. Extremely helpful, extremely nice people, both of them. Very hard workers. They're fantastic leaders. And coming back to the first type of conversations that we had was just to get a general sense of how the program has been run. I'm a firm believer in keeping, certain traditions in place. Obviously you don't want some coach coming in here making all kinds of changes that the players don't like. So keeping them comfortable within their environment was very important. So those first type of conversations was to get as much information out of them as possible so that I can, achieve that goal.
A new thing for you will be recruiting, right? I mean, that's not something you've had to do before, I imagine. What are your thoughts on, recruiting and maybe getting some people who might be considering your alma mater to come to Bates instead?
I think that might be a challenge at first. But the general recruiting, I think it's an exciting way to, bring in players that didn't really look at Bates in the past. Given my 5 years experience coaching in the Fairfield County at Chelsea Pierce, I coached over probably about 100 junior events in 5 years. So I know a lot of U.S. Junior players, and I know, the best of the best. So to have that knowledge and that background, I think is really going to help me recruit better American-based players. I think in the past, like you mentioned, Ahmed Abdelkalek and Ahmed Atata, they were great, but finding those types of players is going to be rare. So the real goal is to really tap into the U.S. juniors circuit and to try to attract the best players from the U.S. And still trying to get that one or two international players that will just combine with both, because again, U.S. junior squash is quickly becoming probably the second best junior country in the world behind Egypt. So I think being at a U.S. college, that's a big plus to actually know junior squash and to be able to go to people and say, listen, Bates squash is going up, and it's in my every intention to recruit the best of the best. While still obviously focusing on incorporating all the positive aspects that's been involved with Bates squash. It's always been a very diverse team, and that's something that I absolutely love about it. I don't think I would have been as excited and happy with coming into a team that was All-American.
Right.
Which isn't actually a bad thing, right? But it's important, especially with a squash team. And I think there's a bunch of different programs in the country, programs like Rochester, St. Lawrence, who are not, part of the Ivies.
Right.
So and they showed that they're recruiting both international and US-based players was very successful. Both programs reached the top 5 in the country. So, I think that would be my goal for the next, I think that would be like a 5-year goal, is to, try to reach the top of college squash by incorporating both the best of US players and then, finding those odd superstars from Egypt or Europe or tapping into the market that's in Asia at the moment, which is a fairly untapped market in college squash too.
Interesting. So U.S. junior squash, when you were growing up, was it number 2 then to Egypt, or has it been rising recently?
Rising recently over the past, I would say 5 to 8 years. I would say. Growing up, I played in the World Junior Championships in 2008, and South African team wasn't very strong. We played in the U.S., or we played against the U.S., and we lost 2-1. It's fairly close, and I think we competed for about, say, spots number 15 to 18 in the world. And if you compare that now, both U.S. men's and women's junior teams are competing for top 5, top 3 in the world.
Wow.
So, U.S. junior squash is definitely on a massive rise.
Interesting. So your coaching style, what is it? I mean, because squash is obviously it's a very physical game. It's also a very mental game. I've been to squash matches. I've seen how, people want to make sure they're not in their own heads and stuff. But what are your style like maybe at practice and then also during matches when you have to kind of be keeping an eye on many different things at once, sort of, I imagine?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing right now. Is like, for example, this past weekend we played against Wesleyan, and they were at one time there were 8 matches going on.
Yeah.
So to try to coach all of those 8 matches is just not possible. So that's something that I'm still figuring out what the best way about that is. But I would say my coaching style is to try to incorporate one general theory about how do you play the game for both teams. But then at the same time, because each player is very different, and squash you can see, look, and think about squash in very different ways. If I want to compare it to, say, football, if you're an offensive lineman, you pretty much have one job, right? And there's very limited ways of looking at that one specific job. With squashes, yeah, like I said, you can think about the game in multiple different ways. Doesn't mean that you're wrong or right. It's how you as a player can accomplish what you need to accomplish to actually win. And with squash having 4 walls, you play with a ball that doesn't really bounce.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways where you can, we can hit the ball so the ball doesn't bounce. We can hit the ball in different areas where you're making your opponent very uncomfortable. It's basically trying to find that balance between coaching the team as a whole and then also focusing on each different player, because like I said, every player thinks, works, and plays in a very specific style.
Well, any other thoughts, I guess, on this past weekend and what you're looking forward to come January when the season gets going again, sort of?
I cannot wait.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to have the team back January 3rd. So it gives us that week of really focusing on getting everybody better. I think both teams need to work on their physicality, and having, say, 7 days where they don't have to worry about schoolwork. Their only focus is on playing squash, getting in the gym, getting stronger. So I'm very excited about what both teams are capable of doing, given that week of actually training super hard and then playing a bunch of really hard matches, right through January.
All right, Rei Hergeth, thanks so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Appreciate it. Welcome to Bates.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Aaron.
The Bobcast is off for a few weeks before it makes a triumphant return in January, at which point we will recap 7 Bobcat basketball games and get you ready for the indoor track and field season. All that and more next year on the Bates Bobcast.